My name's Carl Taylor, and in this program we're going to be looking at how to get your camera off of automatic mode and get creative by using it in full manual mode. Now we're also going to be looking at things like composition, shutter speeds, depth of field, light and much more. But first we need to understand the 6 essential requirements to record a photographic image, because by understanding those 6 things it's going to make photography a whole lot simpler. Now it doesn't matter whether you've got a little digital compact camera, a top-end SLR or a $50,000 studio camera, the same 6 things apply across all types of photography and all camera formats. So we're going to take a closer look at what those 6 things are. The 6 things that we need to understand are simple: light, optics, a subject, an aperture, medium, and time. Now light is all around us. It's what we find and it's what we use for most of our photography, but there are all different types of light and we'll be looking at those in a little bit more depth later on. The subject is what we take photos of, and that's what we define as composition. Optics, well, they're quite simple. Those are the lenses that we put on our cameras and they focus the light to a particular point so that we can capture an image more easily. Now an aperture is quite simply a posh word for a hole, and we use that hole or that aperture to control the amount of light that we capture in the camera. Time, we need to have a certain amount of time to be able to record something, and we control the amount of recording time using our shutter, and that's the shutter speed. And then the medium is quite simply what we record that light onto. Now in this program we're going to look at all of those things in a little bit more detail so we can really understand them properly. But before we do that, we're going to have a look at how cameras work. Okay, so let's look at how cameras work in relation to the 6 essential requirements that we need to record an image. Now here I've got an array of cameras in front of me, right from this little digital compact camera here, all the way up to this high-end, high-resolution studio digital camera. Now this one here is an older film camera, probably 20 years old, but essentially the mechanics in all of them is exactly the same. So let's have a look at that. Here I'm taking the lens off, and we can do that on all SLR cameras. Now the light has to travel through the lens and through the aperture. Now the aperture is simply a hole that we can control the size of to control the amount of light. After the light has passed through that, we need it to be controlled by a specific period of time. And that time we control using something called the shutter. And we can set the shutter speed to a designated time. So I'm going to set that on this camera to 1/4 of a second, and you'll see the shutter opening and closing there for 1/4 of a second. So let's set that for a little bit longer. Let's set that to 1 second, and there you can see the light would have passed through the shutter, through the lens, sorry, then through the aperture and through the shutter to be recorded onto the medium. Now one thing that you will notice there in the front of that camera is a little mirror. You can see the mirror there. Now that mirror is in all of these SLR cameras. You can see the mirror there as well, and there's also a mirror in this one here and in the other one there. Now that mirror is actually not part of the recording process. That mirror is just there so that we can view the image. Basically the light strikes the mirror at a 45-degree angle, bounces up and through the prism and out the viewfinder so that you're able to view the photograph before you press the button. And what happens is the mirror flips up out of the way when you actually take the photograph. There you go. Now that, as the light then passes through to the medium, in this case would have been recorded on the film that would have been at the back across there behind the shutter. Now, on modern cameras, that film has been replaced with a CCD sensor or a CMOS chip, a digital chip to record the light instead of film. And here, if I lift the mirror and the shutter out of the way, you can see that tinted piece of glass in there. That is the CCD chip that's capturing the light and recording the image. Now, it's a little bit difficult to see in that camera, so let's have a look at it on this larger studio camera, which has got a much larger CCD chip. And in this one, I can actually detach it, and there we go. That piece of tinted glass there is actually the CCD chip that captures the light and records the image. That's the recording medium in modern day photography.